Khenpo Sherab Zangpo, he tells us, as the saying goes, 1,000 rivers have 1,000 reflections of the moon, while the moon in the sky is the very same moon. Its reflection in different rivers will vary. The brilliance and clarity of the moon's reflection depends on the state of the river. The mind of a teacher is like the brilliant moon in the sky, and the mental quality of a student is like a river. The stiller and purer the student's mind is, the brighter and clearer the moon's reflection in it will become. The murkier and the more turbulent the mind is, the more fragmented and obscured the moon's reflection will be. As long as there is water in the river, there will always be a reflection of the moon, regardless of whether the water is clear or murky. Hmm. So later, I think after our practice, I'd like to unpack this a little bit. Um, but before we practice, just a couple of points here about a concept in Buddhism that we call bhavanga. Bhavanga and that's spelled Bhavanga. It is a Pali term. It's also used in Sanskrit. Sometimes the words will overlap. Bhavanga is a quality of awareness. It is basically the ground of our awareness. It is this, what is called the ground of becoming, the foundation of becoming. It is that which basically feeds our desire to practice. So if you're here and you're wanting to learn sort of how to deepen meditation practice, if you're curious about what your potential may be in this practice on this path, bhavanga is inspiring you. It is feeding you this quality that is very, very wholesome. It is ultimately um, sort of this very, very subtle form of mind um, that overlays the ground luminosity. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have this notion of ground luminosity, which is that fundamentally your mind is formless as the open sky, and it is also as bright and luminous as the open sky. It is experience, pure, momentary experience of things as they are, without being upset or quote unquote stained by afflictions. It is basically a non-stick pan, if you will. Nothing sticks to it. So, okay, that was a bad association. Anyway, um, so bhavanga is this quality. It's a very important quality in Buddhism that is kind of the point of our practice to some extent. And it is that process that it really is more of a process than a thing in itself. It is awareness, it is subtle consciousness, and it is that which is pure potentiality to transform, to have realization, and ultimately to awaken. There is another term in Sanskrit called mumu, mumukshutva, which is the desire for awakening that arises from your deepest heart. It is a desire. It's seen to be an inspiration and an impulse, but it's a very wholesome one. It's a very natural one. And all of us here on this call would not be here were it not for these qualities. So, so it's interesting to bear witness, if you will, to what we call conditioned phenomena, the things that arise in the mind, the concepts and our reactions and just all of the stuff, right? The content. And recognize them as being empty or as being impermanent. They may be important to us, but they're also ever changing. And when we can just allow them to arise and just disperse on their own, we put them into a perspective in which we're able to kind of hold all of it without needing to do anything about any of it. So, um, the three doors of liberation in Tibetan Buddhism is that first one is this first door, if you will, is that all of these conditioned phenomena are changing all the time and they're empty of what's called empty of inherent nature, that they don't have the realness that they feel like they do. Again, they may be important to us, but um, the inherentness of things isn't there in the way that we may want it to be. And number two, that the causes of all of those things, the causes of the arising of distractions and phenomena, are actually pacified by recognizing this principle, this first thing. That when we recognize the impermanence of things, that the arising of those things are pacified, that the mind settles. Just by recognizing their impermanence and that they're stuff, like flying in an airplane through a cloud. It looks very solid. You go through it and it's fog, it's intangible. Right? And that recognizing this sometimes can help to pacify the causes of arising, right? Wisdom is happening. And then the third door is that no results are produced, what's called they are unborn. And rather, what is produced in its place is recognition, is this potential becoming, this quality of becoming, becoming that which is beyond the projections of our mind, of our relative mind. This is how it works, anyway. And so, recognizing the emptiness of things, allowing that recognition to help us feel more peaceful so that more conditioned phenomena doesn't arise, but rather we're able to hold all of it in this um, quality of bhavanga. And the more we experience this quality of bhavanga, the more tangible that experience becomes. It evens out nicely. A thought may be very gross level, it may be intense. And the more we see it for what it is, it moves through us. It's energy, it's mental processing, perhaps. And by seeing it for what it is, we are we feel a little more pacified in that moment. And then no new causes are likely to arise in the same way. Doesn't mean everything stops. Maybe it does in moments, but we're creating conditions for the mind to really be still. And so these three doors of liberation: emptiness, peacefulness, and that which is unborn. And that allows for the becoming to arise naturally, the creativity, the possibility for life to be different.